Welcome back to another battle between merged Sentry versus Time Trapper Doomsday. Among the countless confrontations the multiverse has ever witnessed, some battles are no longer simply clashes between two fists. They are the collapse of the laws of physics, moments when reality itself is forced to bend beneath the weight of two beings who exist beyond all limits. On one side is Robert Reynolds, a man who was once a forgotten drug addict, now carrying enough energy within him to tear apart the molecular structure of an entire planet. He is Sentry, the most powerful being Earth in the Marvel Universe has ever produced, a man who fought World War Hulk to a standstill, tore Ares, the god of war of Olympus, in half, and faced cosmic entities whose very names were enough to make the gods tremble. But behind that limitless power lies a fractured mind, a soul divided between light and darkness, between the hero and the monster known as the Void. On the other side is Doomsday, the only creature in DC Comics history to have killed Superman with his bare hands, an evolving, adaptive engine of destruction designed with one purpose alone: to destroy everything standing in its path. But this is not the Doomsday you once knew. This is a version that has been interfered with, enhanced, and transformed by Time Trapper, the entity who manipulates the timeline of the DC Universe. A Doomsday who is not only physically immortal, but temporally immortal as well. A Doomsday who can rewind his own death, who can evolve not only with every death, but with every moment throughout the timeline. When the power of a million suns collides with evolution beyond time, when a god carrying the mind of a madman encounters a creature with no mind, only an absolute instinct for destruction, who will be the one left standing when reality itself collapses around them? Robert Reynolds is not a seasoned warrior, not a scientific genius, and certainly not a god born with divine power. He was once an alcoholic, a nobody whose face and name meant nothing to anyone, barely surviving in the dark corners of New York City. But then, one fateful night, he broke into a laboratory and accidentally drank an experimental serum, something scientists called the Sentry formula. From that moment on, Robert Reynolds ceased to exist. In his place stood an entity possessing power on par with the gods who created the universe. The power of Sentry became legendary, the power of a million exploding suns. But this is not merely a literary comparison, it is true in the most literal sense. The energy within Robert Reynolds is powerful enough to restructure molecules, bend space, manipulate matter at the quantum level, and create explosions capable of wiping out a planet. He can fly faster than the speed of light, withstand attacks from Galactus's Herald-level cosmic beings, and tear apart the bodies of gods with his bare hands. He knows just how powerful he is, and that knowledge terrifies him. Inside Sentry exists the Void, a dark entity, a sinister alter ego representing all the destruction Sentry could unleash if he ever lost control. Every time Sentry uses his powers, he faces the risk of the Void rising and devouring everything he loves. That is why, for much of his existence, Sentry chose to erase himself from the memory of the entire world. He allowed other superheroes to forget that he ever existed. He lived in absolute isolation because he feared that if anyone remembered him, they would fear him, and that fear would make the Void stronger. He is not Superman, who carries his power with a smile and confidence. Sentry is a god burdened by anxiety, a weapon of mass destruction carrying the fear of a child within him. And that is precisely what makes him one of the most complex and terrifying characters Marvel has ever created. Because when Sentry fights, it is not only his opponent who is in danger, the entire world around him is also standing on the brink of being consumed by the Void. Sentry's power cannot be measured by conventional scales. There is no defined upper limit to Sentry's physical strength. He fought World War Hulk to a standstill, the most powerful version of Hulk, when his rage reached its absolute peak. That battle destroyed an entire planet. He tore Ares, the god of war of Olympus, in half with his bare hands, something even Thor has never done. He punched Molecule Man away, an entity capable of manipulating every molecule in the universe. He has wrestled with Galactus and his heralds. In some storylines, Sentry's power is described as being equal to or even surpassing that of abstract-level cosmic entity. One of Sentry's most terrifying abilities goes beyond physical strength. He can restructure matter at the molecular and quantum levels. He once defeated Molecule Man by manipulating molecules faster and more precisely than Molecule Man himself. He can turn air into steel, transform stone into pure energy, or simply erase the molecular structure of anything he touches. This ability makes Sentry more than just a powerful brawler. He is an entity capable of rewriting the laws of physics around him. Sentry is nearly impossible to kill through any physical means. He has been torn apart by the Void, only to reconstruct his body from nothingness. He has endured attacks from cosmic entities without suffering any harm. Even when his body is completely destroyed, the energy within him continues to exist and can recreate his physical form. He is immune to most forms of energy, radiation, and low to moderate levels of reality manipulation. Sentry can move faster than light. He has flown from Earth to the edge of the universe in virtually no time. His reflexes are fast enough to deal with high-speed beings such as Silver Surfer and Quicksilver at the peak of their abilities. He can process information and react within periods of time shorter than a billionth of a second. Sentry can unleash energy blasts powerful enough to destroy a planet. He can create protective force fields, absorb energy from his surroundings, and convert it into offensive power. In his The Void state, his energy transforms into pure darkness, a form of energy capable of corroding reality itself. Sentry has one weakness that no physical opponent can exploit, yet it is the only thing capable of bringing him down: his own mind. Robert Reynolds suffers from severe mental illness. He has agoraphobia, a fear of open spaces, and he fears his own power. The Void is always lurking within him, waiting for the moment Robert loses control so it can emerge. If an opponent can make Sentry afraid, make him doubt himself, or trigger the Void, Sentry could destroy himself before anyone else ever has the chance to touch him. Now, let us talk about Time Trapper Doomsday. Doomsday was not born, it was created. Billions of years ago, on the planet Krypton, a mad scientist named Bertrand conducted a brutal experiment. He would throw an infant into the harshest environment in the universe, let it die, then clone it from the surviving cells and repeat the process thousands of times. Every time it died, the creature evolved. Every time it was killed, it came back stronger, with complete immunity to whatever had killed it before. After thousands of Doomsday is the only creature in DC Comics history to have killed Superman in a fair one-on-one battle. No tricks, no kryptonite, no magic. Just two fists, two wills, and an outcome that the entire universe could hardly believe. From that moment on, the name Doomsday became synonymous with absolute destruction. But the version we are talking about today is not ordinary Doomsday. Time Trapper, an entity existing at the end of time and the manipulator of the causal flow of the entire DC universe, intervened with Doomsday. By embedding the creature within the timeline, Time Trapper transformed Doomsday into something even more terrifying than the original. Now, Doomsday does not merely evolve through physical death, it evolves through time. With every passing second, it becomes stronger. With every moment, its skin becomes thicker, its muscles become harder, and its instinct for destruction becomes sharper. It can rewind the timeline of its own body to restore its injuries. It can force its opponents into time loops, where every punch they throw is reset back to its starting point. And most terrifying of all, it can rapidly age anything it touches, turning steel into dust and energy into nothingness. Doomsday does not have a mind in the way we understand it. It does not think, it does not plan, and it does not feel fear or pain. It has only one command engraved into every cell of its being: destroy. And now, with the power of time flowing through its veins, that command has become an unbreakable law of physics. Time Trapper Doomsday is not an enemy, it is a moving extinction event. Time Trapper Doomsday is the combination of two of the most terrifying concepts in the universe, Time Trapper and Doomsday, amplified to a horrifying level. Every time Doomsday suffers a type of damage, its body does not simply recover. It evolves to become completely immune to that type of damage. If you punch it, the next time it will be immune to the force of impact. If you burn it, the next time it will be immune to heat. If you manipulate its molecules, it will develop resistance to molecular manipulation. Time Trapper Doomsday can manipulate the timeline of its own body. If it is injured, it can rewind the damaged area of its body to the state it was in before the attack. If it is trapped, it can push itself forward through time to escape. It can also accelerate its own evolutionary process, turning millions of years of evolution into a single second. This makes killing it through conventional methods virtually impossible. You would have to kill it faster than it can rewind its own timeline. Even in its basic form, Doomsday already possessed strength on par with Superman. In its Time Trapper version, that power is amplified by temporal energy. Every punch it throws carries the weight of multiple overlapping timelines. It has punched through the defenses of the entire Justice League, torn apart cosmic-level entities, and generated shockwaves powerful enough to shake the very structure of space-time. The skin of Time Trapper Doomsday is not merely physically tough. It is reinforced by temporal energy. This means that even if you somehow find a way to pierce that skin, the wound will automatically rewind and disappear in an instant. It is immune to kryptonite, immune to low and mid-level magic, and capable of resisting reality manipulation attacks. The most powerful weapons in DC, from Darkseid's Omega Beams to Green Lantern rings, have all failed to completely destroy Doomsday. The most terrifying weapon Time Trapper grants Doomsday is the ability to accelerate the aging process of anything it touches. A single punch does not merely cause physical damage, it also causes the area that was struck to age millions of years in an instant. Metal will rust and crumble, energy will decay and disappear. Even immortal beings can be affected because temporal aging acts upon the very flow of their existence. Despite being nearly invincible, Time Trapper Doomsday still has limitations. First, its intelligence remains purely instinctive. It does not plan, it does not use tactics, and it does not think. It simply charges forward and destroys. Second, its temporal powers depend on its connection to the timeline. If an opponent can sever that connection, either by pushing it outside the timeline or into a space where time does not exist, it will lose its ability to rewind and evolve. Third, even though it can evolve to become immune to almost anything, there are still forces beyond its ability to adapt, powers that exist on the level of absolute reality manipulation. This is a confrontation between two limitless powers and absolute immortality. In terms of raw power, Sentry surpasses Doomsday in any version. The power of 1,000,000 exploding suns is not something that can be meaningfully compared to the strength of any creature, no matter how powerful that creature may be. Sentry can unleash attacks carrying enough energy to wipe out an entire solar system, while Doomsday, despite his immense strength, remains at the planetary destruction level. However, the problem is this. What does that power mean if your opponent evolves to become immune to it immediately after the first punch? Doomsday will take the first punch, be knocked back, and may even be injured. But in that very moment, his body has already begun to evolve, and with the power of time, that evolutionary process is instantaneous. Sentry's second punch will be less effective. The third will be almost meaningless. And by the fourth punch, Doomsday will be completely immune to the form of energy Sentry is using. Sentry will have to constantly change his methods of attack, continuously discovering new forms of energy and new frequencies just to stay ahead of Doomsday's evolution. Sentry can manipulate molecules, meaning he can attempt to break Doomsday down at the atomic level. But Time Trapper Doomsday will simply rewind the time of those disintegrated molecules, returning them to their intact state. This creates an endless loop. Sentry disintegrates, Doomsday rewinds. Sentry disintegrates again, Doomsday rewinds again. However, Sentry has one advantage that Doomsday cannot adapt to: the ability to manipulate reality on a higher level. If Sentry pushes the battle outside the timeline, into a space where time does not exist, or where every moment occurs simultaneously, then Doomsday's ability to rewind becomes no time, no rewinding. No rewinding, and Doomsday is reduced to an ordinary evolving monster. Still extremely terrifying, but no longer immortal, Sentry fights with a mind that is constantly on the verge of collapse. Every punch he throws, every time he uses his power, the void whispers in his ear. And Doomsday, a creature with no emotions, no thoughts, and nothing but pure destructive instinct, is the perfect opponent to trigger the void. Because Doomsday cannot be intimidated, cannot be reasoned with, and cannot be made afraid. It simply moves forward, forever, without stopping. And for a fragile mind like Robert Reynolds, that endless persistence is a form of psychological torture. If Sentry loses control, the void will rise. And the void is far more powerful than Sentry. The void has no restraint, no fear, and no hesitation. It will not try to defeat Doomsday, it will try to erase it from reality. But at the same time, the void would also destroy everything around it, including Earth and all life upon it. The battle would no longer be Sentry versus Doomsday. It would become the Void versus Doomsday, and the entire universe would become the battlefield, the fight. The battle begins with a collision that creates a shockwave powerful enough to flatten an entire continent. Sentry descends from the sky like a golden meteor, his fist blazing with solar energy as he aims directly for Doomsday's head. The punch connects. Doomsday's gray skin cracks open, black blood erupts, and the creature is hurled several kilometers away, carving a deep trench into the ground. But just 3 seconds later, the wound has already healed. Doomsday rises, and in its blazing red eyes, a flash of green temporal energy flickers. It has become immune to that form of energy. Sentry realizes it immediately. He switches to molecular manipulation, attempting to disintegrate Doomsday from the inside. Doomsday's body begins to break down at the atomic level, but then time reverses, and the atoms return to their original position. Doomsday roars and charges at Sentry with terrifying speed. Its fist slams into Sentry's chest, carrying the energy of temporal aging. Sentry feels it, not pain, but aging. The protective energy surrounding his body decays by millions of years in an instant. Sentry is blasted backward into the sky, creating distance between them. He begins to change his strategy. Instead of attacking physically or with energy, he focuses on manipulating the space-time surrounding Doomsday. He attempts to force the creature into a bubble of frozen time, a space where time has come to a complete stop. Doomsday struggles, its evolutionary power fighting against the temporal stasis, but Sentry pours the full power of 1,000,000 suns into maintaining the bubble. But Doomsday is not merely an evolving creature. It is an evolving creature immersed in time. It begins breaking the bubble from within, not through physical strength, but by accelerating the time within the bubble itself, causing it to age and disintegrate. Sentry is pushed backward, and in that moment, the void whispers. Robert feels the darkness rising within him. He feels the temptation to let go, to allow the void to solve everything. But Robert Reynolds, the alcoholic he once was, the man who feared his own power, does something no one expected. He does not let go. He does not allow the void to rise. Instead, he accepts it. He embraces the darkness within him, not to let it control him, but to integrate it. And in that moment, Sentry is no longer simply Sentry, and he is no longer the void. He is both, a complete entity, no longer divided, no longer afraid. With that unified power, Sentry no longer tries to kill Doomsday. He knows that something that evolves through death and rewinds time cannot be killed. Instead, he does something else. He pushes Doomsday completely outside the timeline. Not into a frozen time bubble, but into a space where time has never existed. A place with no past to rewind, no future in which to evolve, and no moment in which to change. An absolute void beyond every causal timeline. Doomsday struggles. It roars, punches at the emptiness, trying to evolve, trying to adapt. But there is no time in which to evolve. There is no moment in which to adapt. It is trapped within an eternal present, unable to change and unable to grow. And for the first time in its existence, Doomsday stops. Not because it has been killed, but because it no longer has space-time in which to move. This is a victory for Sentry, but not in the way anyone would have expected. There is no finishing punch, no spectacular explosive moment. However, it must be made clear that this is a victory that comes at an extremely heavy cost. Sentry has to confront the void, accept the darkness within himself, and use his power on a level where the slightest miscalculation could destroy reality itself. And that concludes our detailed analysis of the titanic clash between two entities at the pinnacle of multiversal power. Sentry and Time Trapper Doomsday. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Sentry earned this victory, or do you believe Doomsday, with his infinite evolutionary capabilities, should have been the one left standing? If you enjoy top-tier analysis, deep dives into lore, and meticulously detailed battle scenarios like this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a future Cosmic Showdown. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next battle, where the limits of power, time, and reality itself will be put to the test. Goodbye for now.